The Discovery, Chapter 16, Part 2. David sprinted down the hallway as fast as he could. His tired body fought him every step of the way, but he pushed past the soreness and ran even faster. He ran like his life depended on it, quickly covering the distance between Celestia and Luna's private chambers to the front gate within a minute. David bolted past the front guards and into Canterlot, not even noticing the ice-cold wind as it cut right through him. He pressed on, determined to escape Midnight and the Royal Sisters.
Oh no, fuck!
David screamed in his head. Midnight was hot on his tail, and quickly found herself being blasted by the same frigid wind as David, as she pursued. Chills forced their way through her body as she galloped, her fur bristling as the cold permeated through. Midnight pushed the colds to the back of her mind and pushed after David. Midnight was faster than David, and began quickly closing the distance between them. David pushed through Canterlot proper, and found his way into the middle of the city with Midnight trailing only 50 feet behind him. All number of species that were out and about enjoying hearth-warming turned their attention to the sprinting human and galloping pony trailing close behind. A few Phillies and Colts giggled at the seemingly friendly race until they caught sight of David's panicked expression and Midnight's worried face. David ran into the marketplace and weaved through the stands as Midnight followed. She couldn't maneuver quite as well as he could, and had to slow down to avoid running into one of the stands. Midnight cursed under her breath as she lost vital distance between her and David. David rounded the corner and sprinted out of the marketplace. Midnight chanced her luck one more time and called his name before losing sight of him. As she rounded the corner, her hooves slid on the fresh snow and ice, and she fell onto her side. A pained yelp escaped her muzzle, and she connected with the hard pavement. Within moments, ponies were at her side to see if she was alright.
Wow, ma'am, are you okay? That looked like a nasty tumble.
A Pegasus said, as he offered her his hoof.
I'm alright. Did you see which way David went?
Midnight asked as she took his hoof and pulled herself off the ground.
The human? I think he turned right and went up the street.
Thanks.
Midnight said, catching her breath. After a moment, she galloped away. Midnight scoured the city for over an hour, but she couldn't find no trace of the lone human. She checked every district of the city, high and low, but found nothing. From questioning every pony she ran into, to outright asking the royal guard to help her find him, Midnight could find no trace of David. Midnight finally found herself in the central district, dripping in sweat from the exertion. She panted heavily as her gallop slowed to a trot, then to a walk. Eventually, she found a bench to sit on and promptly did so. Her mind raced for possible locations David could have run off to, but found nothing she hadn't already considered 100 times already.
Could he have gone back to the castle? No, Celestia would have sent some pony to get me if that was the case. Or maybe he went back to the house. If he did, he didn't bring a spare key last night. I don't think he would break a window to get in, but then again... David, why are you being like this? You didn't do anything wrong, just... Don't do anything dangerous until I find you. Please.
Excuse me, senorita?
A voice caught her attention. Midnight turned her head up to see a dark gray Thestral, his coat almost matching hers. His faded blue mane and tail were nicely combed, and his eyes were a brilliant rose color. He gave her a smile, his fangs poking out as if to say hello.
Oh, yes?
Midnight asked, shaking her head of her thoughts.
Well, you see, it is heartwarming day. Yet I could not help but notice that you do not seem happy. In fact, you seem upset, also sweaty. May I ask how you came to be in this state?
The Thestral asked with a silky, smooth Spanish accent.
That obvious, huh? Well, my boyfriend is hurt. And I tried to help him, but he ran away. I don't know where he went, and I need to find him before something seriously bad happens to him.
Midnight explained with a sigh.
Ah, I see. Truly a difficult situation. I assume you've searched most of the day, yes?
Yeah. I don't think he's in Canterlot anymore, and that only makes me even more concerned. Equestria can be a very dangerous place, and he doesn't know it very well. He only knows Canterlot's and my house.
Midnight said wearily.
Perhaps you should consider the things most personal to him,
the Thestral said, his tone calm and collected.
What do you mean?
Midnight asked.
When the stallion endures an affliction of the heart, sometimes the easiest way to cope is to go back to the beginning. Back to the things that brought them there in the first place. Whether those things are a pony, a place, or even a thought.
The Thestral started until Midnight cut him off.
Wait, what did you just say?
When the stallion...
No, not that part. The end. What things did you list?
Midnight said, her mind already racing.
I said those things could be a pony, a place...
He started, quickly being cut off again.
That! A place. I think I know where David is.
Midnight excitedly shouted. Midnight quickly wrapped the stallion in a tight hug before hopping off the bench and galloping away.
Thank you so much, and sorry for interrupting you a lot. You've been super helpful.
Midnight called back as she ran. The Thestral smiled and waved as Midnight faded away into the crowd. He chuckled lightly to himself for a moment before pulling out a rose from under his wing. He studied it, as though it had a long-lost secret to share, and headed off.
Young love. Such a joy to witness.
Midnight galloped down the road out of Canterlot noticeably slower than before. She was panting, heavily, and exhausted, but pressed on regardless. She barreled past the royal guards stationed at the main gates without a second glance and headed into the countryside. She followed the path down towards her house until she caught sight of her target.
There it is!
Midnight cheered in her head. She came to a screeching halt as she reached her goal. A wide trench, burrowed into the mountainside just to the right of the road, beckoned for her to follow it. The snow had nearly filled it to the brim, but it wasn't the snow itself that had her attention. It was what was in the snow. Midnight brought her face close to the ground to investigate the tracks in the snow. The prints were far too long and misshapen to be a hoof print.
David's tracks.
Midnight deduced. The human's footprints led her further along the trench, down the mountainside. Midnight allowed herself a soft smile before turning and heading down. Her hoof slid down the snow easily enough, and before long, she was halfway down already. She tore her eyes away from her hooves for a moment to look further down the cliff and saw the skeletal remains of the escape pod David arrived in. Then, she saw a tall silhouette standing next to it. The silhouette was far too tall and slender to be a pony, not to mention the distinct coloration of its skin and short hair. There was only one creature in Equestria that it could be.
David?
As Midnight got closer, she saw more and more of him. His hair, formerly clean and well-kept, was now wild and messy. His clothes were damp with sweat, and there was steam visibly pouring off his body into the cold air. His pants were soaked up to the knees from the deep snow he had traversed, and he almost seemed to be shaking. Midnight finally reached the bottom of the cliff and dropped off the last edge to her hooves. The snow made a soft crunch sound as she landed, alerting David to her presence. Although, he did not move. Midnight quickly wrapped her magic around his torso to prevent any escape, and she slowly approached. David didn't even flinch. He simply stared at the skeletal remains of the pod in front of him until Midnight was only a few paces away.
How did you find me?
David asked, quietly.
I realized that this was the only place you would go.
Midnight replied, trying her best to hide her concern over how cold he must have been.
You know, they gave this thing a level 5 safety rating. Rated to survive an impact at 100 miles an hour to keep all 4 souls on board alive.
David trailed off.
David. Too bad there was only one in this thing when it landed.
David said coldly.
David, you did everything you could. Please, why can't you believe that?
Midnight asked, pain clear in her voice.
Because it's not true.
David's words came out like venom.
Yes, it is. You did everything you could to save them.
Midnight reasoned, growing more frustrated with David.
It's my fault,
David said, quickly turning on Midnight.
You have no idea what happened up there, so why can't you just let it go? Because I care about you too much to just let you destroy yourself over this. If I have no idea what I'm talking about, then tell me. Tell me how this is your fault. I can't.
David shouted before turning away from Midnight and walking towards the pod. Her magic aura gently reminded him that he wasn't going anywhere else unless she allowed him to. Ah, the juicy drama, you just gotta love it. Anywho, let's get on to our reasonable donators. Top donators are 630, BadassWaffle, Only One Thing, Ceru, Orion, IronSky, and Jessie Smith. Matchbook 109, JockeTF, Darkside Rayden, Narwhals, Blackmoonheart, Pastel, Skies, Austin Rollins, Stu Hex, Brother Mortronomicon, Lyra, Rinside 9852, Will Chris, Twinkie, Rysol, Shadowmoon, Luigi 88, Chancellor Quest, Pixmook 369, Bobcat GG of Murder Princess, and many more beautiful people. Thank you all so much for watching this video and live life to the fullest.